what doesn't. So I just really like clear expectations. So hopefully this will help a lot with that. This is very general overview. I like a presentation roadmap, like what I had at the beginning of today, because I think people like to know what's going to happen in the presentation. So that could be a good idea. I will talk a lot about a pre-intro and tell you guys more about what that is. And then we've got the introduction, the methods, but we also want to hear a lot about what you actually did. So it's not exactly what a research talk like you would give at a conference would be. We also want to hear about like what you actually got to do, almost like a 50-50. So I'll talk about that some more because the faculty, you know, they just want to hear about not only the science, but you know, what you got to do. Most of you do not have results, but I really like it when people show the hypothesized results. And I really like it when people make a graph of the hypothesized results. So I'll show an example of that discussion, and then also sharing your experience of the main takeaways you have from being in this internship. So we will be kind of talking again about the data set we've used in most of the presentations today. So it's just a data set where depressed people get the placebo, the antidepressant, or the antidepressant plus therapy. And we see how that affects hope, satisfaction with life. I know you guys looked at some other related variables about that. So that's just an example we will use today. But this pre-intro idea, I really, really like it. It is not required. It's totally not required, but my mentor in my PhD program taught me this, and I just think it's really fun. Kind of has 3 parts. The hook would be that you say something like exciting or flashy to draw people in, but then you do a misdirection and you're like, but actually, and you say something basically contradictory, and then you kind of go back to your original point in a more nuanced way. So it's kind of like you show both sides of something in some ways, and then you go back to your original point. But this will make a lot more sense when I go through some examples. Yes, they are not required, but they are very cool. So let's see, I'm going to go through 2 examples. One will be about the data set you guys have been working with, but this one is about something else. So the hook for this one is when people feel calm, collected, and confident, they are more likely to be receptive to a romantic advance. Which kind of like sounds right, you know what I mean? Like if you're freaking out and busy, you probably don't really care. But it's actually true that people are more likely to be receptive to romantic gestures when they have recently been like scared. So there is this really interesting experiment where I don't know if the IRB would let people do that now, but people walked across like a normal bridge or like a really like a seriously scary looking bridge like this, like I hope it was safe. And at the end, they were all straight men, and at the end there was a woman there who she was like the research coordinator or whatever, and she like wrote her phone number on the form she gave to them, like the debriefing form. And what was really cool is like, so these guys could call her, like, you know what I mean, like she gave them her number, and when they walked across the normal bridge, like 30% called her, and when they walked across like the really scary bridge, it was like over twice as many. And not only that, but this has been actually replicated in like a lot of similar concepts. I would suggest like an amusement park for a first date. It's this thing called misattribution of arousal. Like, if your heart is beating fast, you might actually think you're like feeling romantic, like a romantic nerves rather than fear, or you might think you're nervous because you want to talk to this person romantically. You're just getting like confused. And so that would be the time. So I will just say to resolve this hook, just to remember the hook is like your flashy thing. That for me, it wasn't really that flashy on this one, but it was the idea like, well, yeah, if you're calmed down, you're gonna like to advance. The misdirection was how actually if you're hyped up, you may like to advance. And then the resolution is about the Bachelor. As a social psychologist, I am required to watch this to keep up. You know, I learn a lot. But what I've always noticed, like immediately, is they have so many things that are like literally like jumping out of. They always jump out of a plane. Like every season, they jump out of a plane, and they do similar, like really, like crazy stuff. And so, I mean, to me, it was like clear as day. Like, I was like, okay, well, like, are you serious? Like, if you have, it's kind of like a survivor's thing almost. Like, I don't know, but I guess in this example, what you can see is I started saying one thing, but then I kind of misdirected and moved into something else. It's kind of like when you trick your audience like that, it can be more like you're telling a story. And I think the best presentations are kind of like telling a story. So we're gonna do another one. This is based on your data set. And I will say, you know, in the past 50-ish years, we have cared about mental health a lot more than we used to. We used to not even really know about it that much. It used to be like they might just like put you in an asylum for the rest of your life. And you're just like, okay. They might put you in a room like this, which, I mean, to me it looks very comfortable, but I mean, I wouldn't want to like be there for several hours. Or they would literally just be like, just deal with it. Like, I don't know, just figure it, especially for men, like, just deal with it. Like, I know it is very sad. But actually, some of the modern ideas about how to help with depression are not really that smart. Like when people are like, just breathe, yoga. Not saying yoga can't help, but it's probably not going to cure a serious mental illness. Live, laugh, love. And so you might need the antidepressants for your chemical imbalance, you know. So we want to think about how you could go from this guy to this guy. I think you guys might be too young to have seen these commercials. Do they ring a bell?
Yeah,
it is.
I haven't seen that.
It's a commercial for Zoloft, an antidepressant, and it's like this blob is like, I'm so sad, and then takes a Zoloft to get happy. What that happened to the patients. But we don't know, like in this research study, we don't know if the antidepressants will be enough. We don't know if the therapy will add on a lot. Maybe everybody who gets antidepressants is good, whether they get therapy or not. Maybe that's not the case. So resolving the hook is me saying, okay, when you live, laugh, love, that's probably not going to cure your depression. But if you take medication and hopefully if you take therapy, then you will be cured. No? But you could be better than before. If not, you have a fear. So either way. So it's your turn. I'm going to pass these out. And so I want you guys to be in a group of about 4. 3's okay. And try to think of one for your project. And I do recognize that it is very hard. And it's okay if you don't really come up with one. It's okay if in your group you guys only come up with maybe 1 or 2. Your partner may or may not be in your group, and feel free to switch. It's kind of nice to work on it with your partner, but at the same time, if you guys are in different groups, then you're going to have 2 ideas. But yeah, I'm going to try to give you plenty of time to do this, maybe up to 10 minutes. I'll just kind of see how you guys are like doing with it. And then I'll kind of walk around for what questions you may have. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pass these out. I'm gonna get my mask. Somebody in my family is under the weather. It is kind of like nice now how we just know how to wear them for normal disease, you know. So.
We already made it. Well, it does not.
I'm also gonna pass these out for something else later.
Just put a really big picture.
Mine is about.
Just a really big picture of this face, no?
What? I love it. I never watched it. I only watched like some episodes.
Something like that.
Sorry, just jump in right when you just explained it. What is your
Oh yeah, so we are assessing very quickly, so it's something positive.
Yeah.
And we like actually.
I guess they weren't planning on this and they like.
I do. I searched different parts of my laptop. It's like, you know.
I answered the research question.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing.
Those questions.
It is a really large population.
Like
It
our
has like
community.
10,000.
But I've been like, I just look at like
But I used to assume that like you would be more bases. Yeah, or the score. I guess the score would increase.
Yeah.
Hey, Angela, did you have any recommendations for breakfast?
We
We were thinking like old school bagel or something like that.
yeah, we used to do Einstein or Madeline, but I don't think La Madeline will take it early.
Yeah, because we'll need it here at like 8.
Yeah, either old school or Einstein.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Do like bagel sandwiches and have like obviously a veggie and
Yeah, that
bacon option and that kind of thing. Okay, perfect. Good deal.
About Ace, you're the Aces probably.
It's gonna be something about like how horses used to be more popular and then they went like out of style and now they're coming back.
Oh, yes. Yes, I like that. You wrote that one. And then we'll just compare later and maybe have like a fusion or something.
I didn't know.
Right now we're in the phase of actually skiing, and it's like not many so that's an interesting. So we're trying to figure that out. We may need to like. So I thought we should like ask people like when they say no if they're willing to tell us like reasoning, but I feel like that's also pressure. Like I'm just curious if like it's like a thing or if yeah, well, maybe then like I know you all I think one thing to talk about is like statistics about like healthcare. I feel like a lot of times we talk about quality of our healthcare access, and I think we could like maybe those people with the idea of why our project even needs to exist. I need to personally bet that. We got a lot of slides, so we're gonna need to. I can see what I can do. No, it's still, we just don't have any data, so we're like, okay, you can get something down, so we know where to go, but this is really good.
And that's very modest, but it's a lot of people are celebrating.
I appreciate that.
I think most of you guys have pen on paper, like anybody's
So for our project, we're talking over there, just thinking that we could use some sort of direction, like talking about why our project exists, like talking about barriers to access, like statistics about Oklahoma's women's health and pregnancy issues. This is really be like, oh, you know, in the United States, of course, we have good access to healthcare. People don't need to go to the doctor when they're pregnant, and then we go, but actually, I think we're like 49 or 50 for pregnancy counseling.
What's my misdirection?
No way. Where is
She's in Family Man.
Which is actually where we do our conversation stuff. So she's gonna make it. She's gonna have to just inhale her food. But yeah, that might work.
Give her a green palm batter's carrot.
What a meal. No, that's just not this stuff. Yeah.
That's a good, so I was good for first.
I just want to walk around to this side too. Yes. Is anybody
It's not specific, it's like
Yeah, right, it's like a fruit, you make a bunch of sauce. There's not, yeah, that's a, that's a
That is
I read that abstract so many times, because I'm just like, I didn't. Yeah, we got something.
It's really Like, I like this. I think this is good. They do look scary. And whenever I was doing it, my students had a practice on me. So I like volunteered that, but it's not that dangerous. All right, I just wanted to make sure I had enough time to talk with everybody about how theirs was going. Did anybody want to share theirs? I don't expect everybody to share theirs, but if anybody thinks they might like want some feedback from the group on theirs, that would be fine. Well, you guys, does anybody have one they want to share?
Awesome, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
Okay, Chase, yeah, I'd like to hear your principal feedback. You don't even have to tell her to judge you. I'm just not my So our research is over assessing barriers of telemedicine during the COVID-19 pandemic for senior care members. And so we thought that our hook could be that the COVID-19 pandemic caused telemedicine to be widely available to give access to healthcare for a lot of people. But actually the increase in telemedicine has also made receiving medical care more difficult for certain populations. And that relates to our study because senior care members have been finding it difficult to receive proper health care through telemedicine during the pandemic for various reasons, internet, like lots of different stuff that you guys will hear more about later during our presentation.
Yeah. I think that's a really good one. Did anybody else want to share? Yeah.
Okay. Ours is about redefining surgery from the archives into the future. And hook, insert statistic here. We don't have that yet. So, but you may think that surgery is a career that is desired by many. The title, the salary, the thrill. What if I told you that actually many potential doctors, aka students, have reservations about pursuing surgery as their career? Our study aims to shed light on the reservations that many potential doctors, aka students, have as it pertains to surgery as a career and answer the itchy questions that many may have about the field.
That's great. I love that.
Right there.
Does anybody else want to share theirs? It's okay if you don't want to. All right. I hope that was helpful with starting your presentation. Remember, it's not required to do something like this. It could just be, as I said, very cool. So let's get into the basic components. So every manuscript, every presentation that's scientific would have intro, methods, results, discussion. I know you guys know that. For the intro, it will be kind of the same no matter what your project was. But for the methods, that's going to depend on where you're at in the project. Most of you guys are going to talk about what you're going to do. And I know it can seem kind of weird, but that's actually the majority of you guys. So I don't want you to feel like you're the only person doing that. I mean, when you're developing a project, that is by far the most important. Everything you do follows from how you developed it. And you could get way down the line and be like, why did I do something? You gotta prevent that. It could be what you're actively doing, like some of you guys are trying to recruit, what you actually did. And I really like expected results. I'll show you guys a little graph I made of one. But then you would just kind of discuss the implications, and then I'll get a little bit more granular into some of this. So when I think about introduction, I think about the pre-intro, and then 2 to 3 content areas, and then a post-intro. So I'll kind of break those down. It's like a funnel. I put a lot of funnels on here so you would remember it. Content areas are background information on your study. So like, for example, for the study with depression, one content area could be just about depression in general. And then one content area could be about if medication is thought to be effective, or why or why not. So you always want to start with the content area that's more general, and then go to a content area that's more specific. In a manuscript, you'd usually do about 3. For you guys' presentation, 10 minutes goes by literally so fast. I would just do 2. And the post-intro is your hypothesis. So it's basically saying, okay, we talked about depression, we talked about, what is the previous literature on antidepressants, and now we're going to hypothesize. Maybe you've talked about therapy too, and you're going to hypothesize therapy plus antidepressants is going to work better. Maybe in your antidepressant section you discussed, that some literature shows that, but you're filling some sort of gap in the literature. So just, 2 related background subjects, with the more general one being first. And then always end with your hypothesis. I used to be really bad about this, even like a couple years ago, of not really clearly stating what my hypothesis actually was. And people really want to hear you say, like, we hypothesize that this is going to happen. That's basically your research question in that hypothesis. I think Dr. Jelly taught me that a lot. It's really important. So you are really limited on space. You want to put your whole intro in like maybe 2 slides. Because while people do care about your intro, and I'm not including the pre-intro in here, but they also really want to get to what you did too. The pre-intro is important if you do it, but then they do kind of just want to get into your methods. So maybe 2 slides is good. And then, here's another example of the content areas. Like with the bachelor thing, at first I could talk about the shaky. I actually would reverse these. I don't think I did a great job here. I would talk about the theory about fear and romance, and then I would talk about the shaky bridge experiment, and then I would kind of transition. So yeah, I really like slides that are not so bullet by bullet, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But everybody has their own opinion. Some people really like to use a theme from PowerPoint. I do not like to use the theme. I read this book called Presentation Zen that talks about the simplicity of presentations and how that can be beautiful. I wanted to bring it, but I just moved, so I could not find it. But it's really up to you, but don't feel like you have to stick to a template. But you can see here in just one slide, I'm summarizing like basically the whole intro. So yeah, I was thinking that we could do some like 2 suggestions for content areas for the depression study, because I went really basic, and I think your creative ideas would be cool and a good exercise for you on how to think about this. So on the small piece of paper, try to write 2 suggested content areas and maybe get as creative as possible. If it's basic, that's okay. But I think when we all see what everybody came up with, it can help us kind of think about this from a more like holistic perspective to get a lot of different views. Yeah.
Can you clarify what you meant by like content area?
Yes. So the content area is just the topic of background information. So like, like a content area could be depression. A content area could be how antidepressants work. It's just what part of the background are you going to talk about? And you should have at least 2 parts of the background you should talk about. And the first one should be more general. Is that making sense? If it's honestly not making sense, let me know. I'll walk around to make sure. Okay. Well, yeah, don't spend a lot of time on this, but go ahead and write it down. Yeah. Oh, yeah, let me get the materials.
Never be nice to her again.
Shirts go somewhere.
So far, we did a worksheet about something called hope, misdirection, and resolution. I'm gonna put this on the YouTube channel, so if you just like, you gave me your email, you can just email it to you. Okay, Sid, if you wanna write down my email address, if you wanna email me to remind me, I'm Sarah Bell, so if you just like Sarah Bell with addiction. Oh, yeah,
Few miles worth.
Sorry about that, I have 7 meetings.
5 miles worth. So I've never
Do you follow?
She's still there.
Can we like pick up the t-shirts in the book after?
So just email me about that, and, yeah, for those.
You should. They're dropping tomorrow.
Wait, you might want to keep that for, right?
No.
Oh, you need it back?
Maybe
Okay, what, only 10 months talking about?
Oh, yeah.
They have one. They have in Chico.
She's in
I like the idea of looking out. I really like the.
No, I think she's database. Not database. She's
A lot of things they do, like.
Apple Zeta.
So yeah, you could, it's like your
They had one in the item box before I became a member. When someone sold it, and I got it. And I was like, I want this one too.
I am. Oh yeah, so let me start ranking on
They have gotten a lot better. Like they give it to you. Just pick her out anything.
They only got like 3 things.
But I don't know. I said I did get rid of those boxes though. They actually have some exercise for this box is coming out.
Yeah, they're really good. They're getting
I don't know if it's Facebook, but they have the IVF sugar and the IV box shake group and our AKA
I
sword
think you guys
checker.
just like another minute or so. No, we're not gonna pick up any.
It'd just be
There's still
all
left.
that stuff.
Well, I already know.
is in my chapter, and then my cousin from Maryland, and then I have a few other cousins. So probably about maybe 8 of us, but the rest of my family don't.
Okay, I'm thinking for the sake of time, I'm just gonna read out the ones that we did get. I'm sure we'll see a lot of similarities, but some differences too. Wait, I lost one. And what I just wanted you guys to know is that I got a real hat. I really wanted it for teaching. I feel that this was a good investment, so I tip my hat to you. Yes, yeah.
Did you get it at Goodwill?
I wish I did. I got it on Amazon, but it was a good deal. Okay, we got background on depression, and then people with hope have satisfaction with life. I like that because you're foreshadowing the dependent variable. That's really good. I like that. Depression and then early signs of depression. I like that because that could get at then why do you need to get on this medication sooner rather than later? Maybe prevent some spiraling. Antidepressant medication and standards of care, and then efficacy and flexibility of behavioral therapy. Yeah, I like this because it does get at the therapy, which is a really important piece of this. And so, yeah, I like how it talks about standards of care as well. I think that's really important background. Benefits of different types of therapy, and then methods of medication, like different types. I really like that too because you could be kind of comparing it to like, should you give somebody actually an atypical antipsychotic? Should you give them a benzodiazepine? Should you give them Adderall? Or like what? Because all three of those things are used off-label to treat depression, which I think a lot of people don't know. So I like that, talking about alternatives. Let's see, studies about therapy effectiveness, okay. The prevalence of depression, I like that, and that could almost be like a pre-intro too, like is so much more common than we would think. Some people try to say it's increasing now, but that's probably not true. People probably just didn't used to say they had it. There's not awareness. And then current treatments and evidence supporting them, I like that. Typical therapy, and then American attitudes toward therapy. I really like that, especially because something I really care about is generalizability of research. So I think it's like so important to acknowledge like our cultural context. I got two more. Depression, how medication and therapy works, and how antidepressants function. I like that, very straightforward, the things you want to know. And then we have depression and then various treatments. Yeah, that kind of sums up what you guys all are saying. That you talk about the broad thing, which is probably going to be depression, and then you talk about different ways you could treat it. What are the medicines? What are the options? So hopefully this helped with the content areas. Methods, I think you guys probably already get. It's just, what was the experiment? What was the hypothesis? I feel annoyed at myself because I was like, where's the board? Oh wait, there is a board, okay. But I think about methods as participants, materials, and procedures. So participants, materials, and procedures. Participants would be if you already have data, demographics. If you don't have data, you could do who you are recruiting. Like one of you guys was recruiting women needing preconception counseling, so it would just be, you know, I feel like this wasn't really worked with how good this marker is. But then you've got the, okay, so we've got the participants. Materials are like if there's any specific questionnaires you are going to use, if there's any device you are going to use, and then the procedure is what you actually do. So who are the participants? What kind of, you know, surveys or instruments are you using? And then what are you actually doing? So yeah, you do have to, don't just skip the results slide because you don't have results. that is kind of a must, like don't skip that. If you have a stat plan, you can put that in there. You may not, that's okay, but you might be able to ask people on your team about that. But I do like the hypothesized results. My interns last year were seeing, since medical marijuana became legal, if more people were going to the ER for marijuana-related medical events. And so we actually still don't have our results. I'm still analyzing it now because we had over 100,000 people in our data set. Also, my computer is not really have that high capacity, so I have to like wait for it to run stuff. That's normal for statisticians. Sometimes we have to run stuff overnight. I don't think a lot of people know that, but this is just me saying I was thinking before legalization, there might have been less marijuana use, or people might have been too nervous to go because then people would know they were on an illegal substance and maybe it increased. So you can do something like that. For discussion, I really like summarizing what the implications of your results would be, but then also tacking on kind of how was the internship for you, like what were the main things you took away. I think the faculty just really are interested in that. I'm not going to really go over all of this because it's on your handout, but this is almost a template. You do not have to stick to this, but it is a suggestion. For 10 minutes, I would say 10 slides with content or less, and then don't count like the title slide. With regard to references, you do not have to use them. You can if you want. If you use them, you could use internal citations if you want. For me personally, everybody varies on this, but I actually don't usually use references in a presentation, and you do not have to. But if you do, however you cite them is completely up to you and your best discretion. And I mean, it can be nice, so just your personal choice. But I really like bad PowerPoints. To the point that my best friend made me actually a whole slide deck of really bad PowerPoints for my birthday one year. I mean, I got a real present too, but I liked it better. But I wanted to show you guys just some really bad presentations that I found online to kind of tell you what not to do. Like, you guys wouldn't know that. But, I mean, I will say we do want to avoid this. It's like when I feel like when I was younger, I wanted to write everything I wanted to say on the PowerPoint so I wouldn't forget it. But then you end up with something like this, and it's kind of like, you know, when you're like, you guys are all kind of actually reading this right now, and that's what you don't want people doing. I don't know why I like this one so much, but there are several types of these. This is really declining here. There's just a lot. Of course, it's actually really helpful bad slide characteristics, but it's so hard to read. Of course, you don't want to go just totally insane with bullet points, or they will think that the term bullet point comes from people firing guns at annoying presenters. So, you know, just don't go too crazy with that. This just looks awful. All I have to say. This is a real PowerPoint from something that was definitely actually used, and I'm just like, are you serious? And then the last one, this is actually from our government. I don't know what administration was in power. It's just, there's so much.
And
There's so much. And fourth dimension, like, cognition, knowledge, yeah. So just don't make it like this. That's just like the bar. So I am very big on practicing. I am a little bit psycho about practicing. You need to practice, and you need to practice more than one time. And you really need to practice more than 2 times. And not every faculty member, whoever thinks that, but when I've had so many students practice their presentations, they literally get so much better. I had a student one time who like, he just like freaked out and like almost just like sat back down and stuff. It was like I felt so bad for him, but then like the next time I had him in class, we like practiced it together and it was like night and day. So I would say practice it with your partner at least once or twice, and then practice it with your mentor, and then they can give you feedback, and then you can use the feedback to practice it again. Again, some people would be like, this is kind of like doing the most, it's too much, but I just personally think the practicing is the most important thing. Also, you can catch weird things. Like one year I had students that one of them was talking extremely loud and one of them was talking extremely quiet. I was like, what's happening? You guys both use a normal voice in real life? And it even took a while to get it out. I was like, you guys, it sounds like so weird. And so we caught that. That would have been weird. I think less is more on slides. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I would just say less is more. Make the text big enough. I think I wrote this bullet point at a time when I needed to go to the eye doctor. But make the text big enough. Roadmaps are nice. Don't talk too long. Like if I let you guys out here at 1:05, you guys would be like so annoyed. Like it's like whenever it's like nobody wants a presentation that's too long. Like be like if your exercise class went over or something, nobody actually wants that. Like one time I had a yoga class that went 15 minutes over, and I was just like, I don't feel very zen right now. And it's awkward for me too, or whoever. Like I'm always like, okay, I'm supposed to cut them off at 10 minutes, but it's like 10 minutes, 30 seconds. I don't, like, I feel awkward. Just, you don't want to talk too long, and that's why when you practice, you need to time yourself. It's really important. 10 minutes goes by so fast. But also don't talk too fast. I've had a lot of students who, whenever they were running out of time, they started talking really, really fast, and it was like so awkward. So don't just skip some things you were gonna say or something. It's really awkward. Don't do that. Avoid blurry images, and then explain stuff in a way that your mom could understand. That's how I think about it. If I can explain my research in a way that my mom can understand, then everybody will get it. I don't like jargon. I don't like too many really big words. I think it's kind of pretentious, but more importantly, the point of science is that you are discovering something and you want other people to understand what that was. So, you know, explain it like how you would explain it to somebody not in the field. That's gonna make sure everybody in the audience understands it, and they'll probably like that better too. So I was just gonna say, I can't wait to see them. I saw the writing on the wall about time to jot notes down, but we do have 8 minutes if you want to start jotting notes down. If you have any questions, you know, you can get with your partner and start jotting things down. But you can just use this time and ask me any questions you have, and hopefully that this will just kind of help you feel like better about this, like you're more prepared and you know the expectations and you're actually developing what you're gonna do. And then like I said, don't forget we have office hours tomorrow at 10. You can drop in at any time. You know, if it's like 10:30 or 10:35 or something, just drop in whenever you want to. We have some on Monday. And if you want advice but you can't make the office hours, just let me and Heather know, and we'll definitely get with you separately. We love giving presentation advice. So yeah, I'll let you guys work for just a few minutes. But first, did anybody have any major questions? All right, awesome, cool. But yeah, it's on the back of your sheet. It's like a little